With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
I'm always looking for ways to show my cat how much I love her. And with Fancy Feast gems, I can pamper her whenever I want with a savory gravy on top of a gourmet mousse pâté. The pyramid shape makes serving simple, so all I have to do is peel and plate to make mealtime feel extra fancy. And with 2 entrees in every pack, it's easy to turn every day into the extraordinary. Fancy Feast gems.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar, zero patience for slow walkers, those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night, have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
Hey there, Duke fans. Episode 740 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. Jason Evans here for you. I'm with my buddy Donald Wine. Donald, in full transparency, we're recording this only moments after we recorded the previous DBR Bites. If something huge, this is a Tuesday afternoon, it's around 4:25 or so. If something huge happens in the world of college basketball between this moment live and when this episode goes live, which is probably like Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning, something like that, we can't comment on that because we don't have a crystal ball. At least I don't think we do. Do you have? I don't have one.
I don't, but I will say this because it's, we're telling everybody when we're recording. I will let you know, Jason, that I am going up to New York tomorrow, New York City.
Okay.
Because I am going to see Wu-Tang and Run the Jewels at the Garden tomorrow night. I have been pumped about this since they announced their tour. Me and a buddy got some really good seats, like 4 rows from the stage.
Wow.
That come with a pre-reception and everything. My friend was like, you know what, D, I'll splurge. You buy the hotel and buy dinner, and we'll make it. We'll call that even. They even made this company made a soccer jersey that combines the Run the Jewels logo with Wu-Tang into some great for the tour. I of course I bought that, so I'm wearing that tomorrow. Very, very excited once again to go back to the Garden, but also to see Wu-Tang. I've never seen Wu-Tang, and this is their final tour, so this was a must see for me. And also, Jason, on Sunday I was in New York, or I was in Jersey, because I was at the Club World Cup final. I was on press row for that, so I did a couple of things for that.
Did you get in the picture with Chelsea? Did you get in the picture with Chelsea?
I was not there. I was very far away from that. I did see it though. But the World Cup is a year away. So that this means with that concluding, with the Club World Cup concluding, now all eyes turn to next summer at the World Cup, and that means the question about can I get you tickets has begun in full force. The answer, ladies and gentlemen, is there is a lottery. And if you follow me on social media, very, very soon I'll have information about how to apply for World Cup tickets, but the answer is no. I can't get myself World Cup tickets, so I can, unfortunately, as much as I would love to bring everyone along for the ride, it's just not going to be possible.
All right, so wait a second. Yeah, they flew your butt out to where it was, Dubai or something like that, so that you could view the picking of the World Cup, the draw of the teams or whatever that, wasn't something like that?
Yeah, it was the World Cup draw. Yeah, it was the World Cup draw.
But they won't give you tickets. I mean, come on, what's happening here, man?
Well, I got to buy them, and they're going to be very expensive. So that's also why I can't take everybody along for the ride. But I mean, yeah.
The other thing I want to mention is, wait a second, hold on. So, like a week ago, you were seeing Beyonce in concert. Now you're going to go see Wu-Tang. I thought like going to crazy sports events was your thing. Apparently, concerts is also.
Yeah, it turned into the summer of concerts, or at least the month of concerts.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited. It was awesome to see Beyonce. It was a great show. But going to
wait,
see
did
Beyonce.
you hear what happened to Beyonce here in Atlanta?
Yeah. What you mean with Jay-Z coming out, or?
No. I mean, her music got stolen.
Oh yes, I did see that. So shame on you, Atlanta.
Oh my God.
Also, if you have said music, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. Won't say nothing.
We would like to hear it. We would like to hear it.
I just want to peek. But yeah, two very good concerts. I'm real looking forward to getting back up there to see Wu-Tang.
By the way, speaking of concerts, a buddy of mine was buying tickets to Paul McCartney today.
Nice.
Tickets to see Paul McCartney in Atlanta were going on sale. And this guy was like, the seats are like $600 a pop, and they're not even that good. Wow, I don't know.
Paul, yeah.
Oh, it was at the office, and we all said, we're like, this is the last time. If you get to see him, this is your last time.
It was like that one is like definite. Like, yo, if he is in concert, you better go see him because you do not know. Yeah,
right, exactly. All right, enough of the DBR music report, the DBR concert report. It is time for us to switch to college basketball a little bit and the survey. More than 1,300 of you, 1,300 Duke fans, filled out this survey, and we are on to the final questions and giving you the results from it. These final questions, all this stuff will cover the changing, evolving, insane state of college basketball. And even though there isn't a lot of questions left, we are convinced that it's going to take us a long time to discuss it, because the insane state of college basketball is a topic that Donald and I can talk about for a few hours at least. Let's get to the first question, though, from the survey about this, which is a very simple one with 4 simple answers. NIL has changed the world of college basketball, we asked you. How do you feel about that? A whopping 49.1% of you, almost 50%, said, I think the players should get something, but $1 million plus pay-for-play contracts seems a little bit crazy. Donald, I'm not at all surprised that people feel that way. That is not, by the way, what I voted for. I voted for the thing that came in second place at 32%. About a third of you say, I'm good with paying the players whatever they can get. They deserve it. And in a second, I'll tell you why I voted for that one. We should note that the thing that came in fourth place was at 11%, 11.5%. People said giving them a stipend on top of a scholarship seems fair. But, we're only talking about like $10,000 to $20,000 a year, not a huge amount of money. And then 7.3% of you, 7% of you said, let's get back to amateurism. Give them tuition, give them room and board, but that's enough. No payment at all for being a college basketball player. All right, so Donald, I said that I was with the third of people who say whatever the players can get, they deserve. Where did you come in on this one?
I'm right there with you. If someone is worth $10 million a year, then they should get $10 million a year. If somebody is worth $200,000 a year, they should get $200,000 a year. If somebody is worth, it feels like they're worth room and board, then give them room and board. But I think these guys, and obviously we're going to flesh out this discussion. A lot of these questions, the reason why we have these last 5 questions together is because they all tie into each other. But we're going to have a more full discussion on how that could become a little bit more palatable, or at least reasonable, and maybe more properly managed.
And I'll tell you very quickly, the reason I say they should get whatever they can, whatever they deserve, and that there shouldn't be some limit on it, which is functionally what the thing that 50% of you voted for, that they're that $1 million plus contracts seem, $1 million plus pay for play contracts seem crazy. The reason I'm opposed to that is because I can't think of any other circumstance where you say, I'm going to pay you, employee, and frankly, they should be employees. I'm going to pay you, person who's providing a service for me, but I'm not going to pay you what you're actually worth. Is there any other example of that, Donald? I mean, I guess maybe an intern, but an intern functionally isn't performing valuable tasks for the business in most cases. I don't know. The fact that they're in college used to be limiting for good reason, because it was a niche kind of thing. And by used to be, I'm talking 50 plus years ago. But the NCAA tournament, the the regular season and all these games on TV, the fact that stadiums are full of 10, 20,000 fans who are paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars for those seats, the notion that the players should not get anything or that the players should be limited in what they get, it just doesn't make any sense to me. They should get what they're worth, and whatever they're worth, that's what they should be paid.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I think, you know, basketball players, football players, fencers, swimmers, they should not be limited when we talked about music, right? If Wu-Tang was in college, they could still perform in college, and we've seen that happen. If someone was in movies or they were an actor or an actress, they can go be in a film, and they can still go to school. And I think,
well, in fairness, those are activities away from the school. They are not confined to school.
Well, it could be, again, you could represent the school, right? They have the groups, like Speak of the Devil, Pitchforks, things like that, where you could represent the school and go and perform at an event. Band does it all the time, those sort of things. And if they decide to get paid for that, absolutely, right? Like, and those are things that, because of the fact that they're not doing it and they're not a athlete, people think that's okay. It's just as okay to be an athlete and command whatever money that you think you deserve. And if a school thinks you're worth it, they're going to pay it. And I think that's fine. And again, I think we'll talk about some of the other intricacies that kind of make this NIL ball of wax what it is.
Speaking of that, you got the next question. Go for it, man.
Yeah. So this was a multiple choice question. So people were able to pick what they felt was applicable. And the question was, speaking of NIL, I think.
By the way, we should note you could pick multiple. Like the answers don't equal 100. You can pick multiple choices here. It wasn't just multiple choices.
It was a pick all.
Yeah, pick all that apply.
It wasn't a multiple choice. It was a pick all that applies. So you could pick 1, you could pick 5, you could pick 0. But we had 1,304 responses. So Jason, we had about 13 or 14 people that actually did not answer anything in this question. So there's that. I will say that the number 1 and 1A answers were with 56.7%. There needs to be transparency in these pay-for-play contracts. I think I'm leaning towards that. And then the other one at 56% was there should be some kind of salary cap for all teams. There was a couple others that got some pretty good results. The first one with 40.7%, I am fine with kids getting real endorsement deals but not pay for play. And then there was also at 33.6%, Jason, boosters should not be paying anyone. The school should handle it. And I think we've talked about the House settlement and how convoluted that settlement is and how it can create even more issues. And we'll maybe talk about that later on. Rounding out the discussion, Jason, or let's round out this question at 10.8%, kind of in line with the previous question. 10.8% of people said these are amateurs. It worked for decades. Go back to that world. And then 5.1% thinks the current system is perfectly fine. There's nothing else to do about that. But Jason, where did you fall in line? I think obviously with a multiple choice, which ones did you think were most applicable?
The one that was most important to me is that there should be there should be some transparency and there should be some kind of salary cap. And the salary cap is the one that I really feel the strongest about, because I don't want a situation like we have in Major League Baseball where a few rich teams are able to outspend everybody else. And if you're in a smaller market, or if you're literally not in one of the huge markets, you feel like my team can't compete. I think that is a problem for college basketball. That is a problem for any sport. I think it's a problem in Major League Baseball right now that the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Tampa Bay Rays, their fans feel like we can't compete with the Yankees. We can't compete with the Red Sox. We can't compete with the Dodgers and several other clubs. When you have, one club that is literally paying their players 3, 4, 5 times as much as some of the other smaller clubs, that's not a competitive atmosphere. And I want to note that I know that college basketball already has a situation, someone like that. Duke is spending more than Central Michigan on their roster, exponentially more. But when you have 350, 360 odd teams with the disparity in size of programs and size of alumni and other things like that we have, and disparity in attention to the programs, then of course there's going to be a stratification. My concern with the salary cap is that like there shouldn't be, I don't know, a multi-billionaire who went to Texas Tech maybe, who just decides he's going to pay more than everybody else for his players, or like, an entire church that decides it's going to pay more for players than anybody else, like at BYU. I think those are situations that are problematic, where teams that should be on somewhat equal footing are not on equal footing because of unregulated spending. So that to me was like one of the biggest ones out there. I want transparency, so I understand what's going on, so everybody does. And by the way, I think transparency is good for the players. If you know what everybody else is making, you know what you should be making. And I would like some kind of limit, some kind of way of figuring out a salary cap of some sort. I don't know if you have to call it a salary cap, but something like that. Frankly, we have seen in football, in basketball, in hockey that it works. And I think we've frankly seen in baseball that it doesn't work.
It's interesting, right? Because you just mentioned baseball. The Yankees spend more than everybody. I mean, I think they have, they
spend more than Dodgers? I think the Dodgers spend more than it's
well,
it's
the Dodgers have more money deferred in Shohei Ohtani than is the entire Rays payroll, right? So they had that deferred type of deal. But I mean, what I'm saying is like the Yankees outspend everybody in their division, sometimes 4, 5, 10 to 1. And when's the last time they won a title, right? So it doesn't always work. That sort of thing.
Right. To really quick, to me, it's not so much that spending a lot guarantees your success. It's that teams that can't spend, their fans feel like they have very little chance of success. I know the Rays have cracked the code on it and been able to do it to some extent lately. And every so often you'll get really lucky. Pittsburgh has Paul Skeens, who's
Paul Skeens is dope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tigers. We don't spend that much either. And we're top of the league right now. So
right. But just in general, I think it creates a sense among the fans of inequity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, the bigger focus was on transparency, because I'll be honest, Jason, I don't necessarily want a salary cap, because who is going to be hindering us. It may be the difference.
Duke's one of the top 10 spenders in the game. Yeah, that's for sure.
Right. So it's going to be us that would be reeled in. So when people think about a salary cap, you got to think about who it affects. And it would mean that we don't get all of the players that we want. We may have, or also we may have to go after different types of players. But I also say this, the one thing about NIL that I think a lot of people are missing is that people think because you spend the most money, you're going to get all the players. And we have found 8 miles down the road in Chapel Hill that they have thrown a ton of money at different players.
Yes.
And they have gotten none of them. And they have.
Well, what's more, they spent a ton of money this offseason and everyone's like, oh, they didn't get a very good roster out of it. They didn't spend wisely.
Right. Because they had the money to throw around, and the guys who they wanted to go after said no. And sometimes we talked about this last year, there's been guys who have turned down more money from other schools to go to different schools. And so again, it's not a full science, but yes, I agree that in general, having more money means you have more opportunity, you have more influence. And again, it's not just the spending on the players, but it's also the recruitment process. How much can you spend on those planes to take you from C to striding C to see players across the country? Or do you have to regionalize your recruitment? That sort of thing. Those are all things that kind of add up. But I think, again, the transparency is one thing. Having contracts is great. I think that would be a great move. Again, there's nothing stopping people from having multi-year contracts, but having that sort of thing where you kind of go, oh yeah, this guy got $5 million, but he's getting $4 million in year 2. So he has to kind of stay a year. That also will help with recruitment of high school players, because high school players will be able to open their books and say, hey, they got these 3 guys under contract at my position for next year. Just like you see the NBA, and we see that with free agency. We see guys go, oh, well, they don't have, the Suns only have 6 guys and they all play wing. So if I'm a center, I'm good. Enter Kamen Malawach and Mark Williams, right? That sort of thing. And I know they came via trades, but I think those sort of things are what teams or what players can look at. And again, it gives them more information to make the best decision.
All right, let's move on to the next question, and we're going to get away from NIL for a moment and get to the transfer portal. Next question was, the transfer portal has made roster construction crazy. In my opinion, 54.5% of you, more than 50% of you say players should be given one free transfer, but after that, they need to sit out a year. You can do it once, folks, but after that, you got to pay a little bit of a penalty if you want to keep moving around. We are clearly a group that does not feel like we want to see guys going to 4 different schools in 4 different years. So the next 3 answers basically all came in very, very similar. At 18.7%, we had folks who said we should go back to what we used to have. If you want to transfer at all, you have to sit out a year. Then at 13.8%, people who said current system is perfectly fine. Players should be allowed to transfer like any other student and suffer no penalty at all. And then at 13.1%, and again, these other 3 are functionally very, very close to the same. We had people who said that players should be given 1 or maybe 2 free transfers, but after that, transfer window's done. If you transfer once or twice, you're sticking around at wherever that is for the rest of your time in college. I can kind of understand how that one came in last. The notion that you would not be allowed to transfer at all feels very, very limiting. I personally voted for the one that got the majority of 54.5%, that give players 1 free transfer, but I don't like this notion of guys who transfer 2, 3, 4 times with no penalty whatsoever. I do still feel like there should be a little tiny bit of an academic mission as part of this. And I don't know how you make your academics work if you're going to different schools every year with different requirements and all that other kind of stuff. How about you, Dom?
Jason, I'm in the blue on our pie chart here, which is the current system is fine. Here's why I think it is being allowed to transfer like any other student. I just have to go back to my answer from the previous question. If we have more transparency and we have some multi-year contracts, that will eliminate that discussion or this portion of the discussion, because
that's a good
guys
point.
won't be able to do that every year. Or, Jason, I think what a lot of like teams in the MAC and the Mountain West and the Missouri Valley Conference, those mid majors, a lot of them get poached every single year. You see them play, you see those teams get their one shining moment, and all of a sudden their team is dismantled because all of them get big dollar amounts to play in Power 5 schools. I think the one thing that can alleviate that is if there is a contract, right? Like if I have a 2-year deal, and after 1 year, Jason, you come along and say, "Hey, I want to, get this guy. I want him to transfer to my school." You got to pay the buyout, just like we have in soccer, just like we have in other sports, where you can just buy out the contract. And sure, that contract, yeah, okay, he might be getting $500,000, but to buy it out, it might be $3 million. That adds to the thing here. But I also, again, there's the give and take with this. I also recognize on the other side, the best players who might be going to the NBA after a year, they're not trying to sign 3-year deals. They're not trying to sign multi-year contracts. So they may want to sign a 1-year deal. And again, that's the give and take. If you want, like, hey, Jason, I'll give you 4 years at $10 million, or I'll give you 1 year at $1 million. Which one would you take? And that's a question that is a different answer for everybody. Someone may say, hey, you know what? I can stay 4 years at Duke, get a degree, and still have a chance at the NBA or play in Europe, and I get 10 million. Sign me on the dotted line. Some may say, yo, guys, I'm trying to leave after 1 year, so I'm trying to get as much money as I possibly can in 1 year. So 1 million is not going to be enough for me. So I think that's why I went with the current system being fine, because I think there are the people being able to transfer is not the problem here. I think the issue that can be solved with that is offering contracts that are multi-year, where they have to figure out a way to get out of that deal. I think that is where you can make it where there is some stability.
By the way, last word on this part of it. We had an example of this involving Duke just in the past few months. Cedric Howard was at Eastern Washington. He clearly played his way into being better than that. He moved on to Washington State. It's where his head coach went. Clearly played his way into being better than that, and he was on his way to Duke until the NBA came calling. But the reality is Cedric Howard was looking at multiple transfers in multiple years, and we certainly didn't see any problem with it then.
And he followed his coach until he got to Duke, right? He followed his coach. So, and a lot of, I think what a lot of people don't understand is some of these transfers are just, again, players following their coach. We just talked about loyalty on the last show with Herminia. I think some of these guys, it's not all the time that you see. We talk about the big dollar ones. We see those, but we don't see the numerous transfers that are just players going, "Hey, my coach went to this school and he believes in me, and I'm going to follow him to the
Yeah.
school." So that happens, and I think most people would be more sympathetic to that particular option as opposed to the quote unquote mercenary who's just, all right, who's going to pay me the most amount of money? I'll just go there.
Hey, Donna, what do our fans, or our listeners, I should say about roster construction in John Shire?
You know what? They, there's a very clear answer to this. So the question is, John Shire continues to buck the national trend by building around superstar freshmen. I think blank, blank, blank. It was 70.6%. Most of you said, it ain't broke, so don't fix it. We should continue to focus on one and done talent. 22% said, I'd rather see us get lower tier recruits and then build them up over several years. Call this the Houston approach. And then 7.1% of you said, full portal, baby. Go out and get the best dudes we can out of the portal the way Kansas, Kentucky, and Arkansas do. Jason, I think the basic point of this is that John Shire has kind of figured out a balance that he wants. And we've talked over and over about how that balance has maybe shifted in years, but it's still a balance. It ain't broke. Like, just because we fell short in the Final Four doesn't mean we need to completely revamp this whole approach to things. He is doing his job. I trust in John Shire.
Yeah, it's shocking to me that the year after Duke had three one and done guys go in the top 10 in the NBA draft, including one of the best freshmen in college basketball history, that we would say, hey, it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's keep on doing this path. But on the other hand, I completely agree. It's what I voted for. 70.6% of you say, what Shire's doing for roster construction, thumbs up, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move to the last of our questions now. Before we're gonna in a little bit, we're gonna get to the open response portion, which was
open.
We had 1,000 plus open responses. Oh my gosh. But before we get to those, we have our last question, which is, speaking of the portal, speaking of NIL, speaking of one and done, over the past several years, my interest in college hoops has 54, almost 55% of you say stayed the same. Still love the sport, baby, even with all the transfers, even with all the one and dones, even with all the portal. I am still a college basketball fan. 32.9%, almost a third of you said, honestly, my interest in the sport has lessened a little bit. And I understand that answer. We had 11% of you said, my interest has really dropped a lot. And then 1.5% said, I've tapped out. I'm about to be done. I don't know how much longer I can take this. Now 1.5% is, that's almost just like a misclick error. At least it's close to it. I don't want to dismiss those people, because there are people who genuinely feel that way. But 55% say everything's fine, but it's kind of notable that, almost 45%, actually more than 45% say, my interest is down at least a little bit. I don't think that's surprising. Donald, by the way, I said stayed the same. I think it's no surprise that the folks who do this podcast would say that our interest is still the same as it was a while ago.
Well, I also think that we got a lot of responses to this, and I think we talked about this after the survey came out, that the one option that we were missing from that is that their level of interest has increased, because a lot of people said that, yes, my interest has increased, and that wasn't an option. So I feel like most of the, I'd say most, not all those people went and stayed the same bucket. So that elevated up quite a bit. So it'd be interesting to see maybe next year if we do this, like how that
poor
fleshes out
survey construction on my part. I did not have a space for, I'm more interested now that people are moving around and leaving faster. I guess I didn't consider that as a possibility, but hey.
Jason, we need to strive to become the John Shire of survey construction. Okay, so we can work on that for next year. But I think in the grand scheme of things, I am not surprised that most people think that it's stayed the same. I am cognizant of the people who just don't like this new era of college basketball, the NIL era, at all, and I think that weighs into their lessening of it. But again, I can't say that this is how other people think. I can only speak for myself. I approach this a lot differently in my I feel, than everybody else because I worked for the football team when they won 6 games in 4 years. I recognize all of the work that they had to go through. And back then, they could not eat McDonald's that I bought for them without getting into trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you have those kind of like experiences that fuels the reason why I think that everybody should be going for theirs and getting what they can. And if they want to turn down $2 million to take from one school to get $1 million here, that's fine. If they want to get $5 million somewhere else as opposed to 4.9 somewhere, that's fine too. Because I think that's where we're at in this world. But I also think that it doesn't matter about all these players moving around. It's about how you turn them into a team. And clearly, there are only a few coaches out there right now that have mastered the art that is ever growing and ever evolving of turning these 13, 14 players or 10 players into a gelled team. It does not matter where all those guys got their money or where they came from. But if those guys turn into a team, that's how you can get a leg up on everyone else. That's why I'm so bullish on what John Shire has been doing because, yeah, every year we have this discussion about how he's going out and getting one and dones and getting guys from the portal and paying X million of dollars to get all these guys and getting new assistant coaches and all of this. And at the end of the day, we have some teams that are among the best, not just in college basketball, but all time in college basketball. And I think that takes a lot of skill. It takes a lot of talent. It takes a lot of management, and it takes a lot of great people around you to make that work. So that's why I'm kind of bullish on this. That's why my interest has increased. And I'll admit, yeah, it's because we win all the time. Winning helps.
You talked about money and NIL. I think the thing that's bothering people more in terms of their interest in the sport is the wide open transfer portal and the constant shuffling of rosters, and then to a lesser extent, one and done. We've been dealing with one and done for quite a while now in college basketball. I don't think that is bothering folks too much. I think a lot of us wish that we would have guys stick around longer, but I think the real thing is the transfer portal in terms of people's interest waning. There are numerous rosters in the ACC where functionally no rotation players have returned, and they are turning over the entire roster. We had this wasn't one of the comments that I picked out that I wanted to mention, but there was a comment in the open answer portion where someone said, "Hey, when you guys are doing previews of the opponents that Duke's going to play, you always talk about the players. Talk about their number too, so that we know who to be on the lookout for." And he said it, and I was like, "Oh, it's an interesting idea. I'll try and do that next year." I sort of thought to myself, and it just occurred to me in having this conversation with you right now. One of the reasons the number is more important is that we don't have the names. We don't gain consistency with the names to think of, the guys in those programs anymore. There was a time when you were like, okay, we're playing Maryland. I know we're going to play Juan Dixon, and I've seen him for a few years, and I know what he's like. And now, I couldn't tell you anyone on Maryland's team, and partially because Maryland's over. I'll take NC State as a good example. I used to know who was on NC State. I know that NC State turned over their roster, and if I think really hard, I can probably think of a couple of the guys they brought in. They brought in some guy from A&M or Texas Tech who's pretty good, something like that.
Brought in Van Allen Lubin.
Right, Van Allen Lubin. Right, there's a good one. But I'm saying just in general, like I don't have a good sense of who's on what team. Who's on Virginia this year? What's his name? Transferred to Louisville? Like that to me. And that's the portal. That to me is the thing that in the past few years, I don't want to say it's felt broken, but it's felt like something that you have to spend the month of November and possibly also December figuring out who your team has and who other teams have. And there was a comfort in having a better sense of what rosters look like. That's just the reality.
I will say it has made our lives a lot more difficult when we scout these teams and we go,
oh,
yeah, we played this guy, but we played him 3 years ago, 2 teams ago when this team played here. So I got to talk about when I saw this guy play against Duke, but for another team before he transferred to the other team, before he transferred to the team that we're about to play tomorrow. So that makes
I enjoyed when we previewed, I think it was Miami this past year, and I was like, Nigel Pack, I know him. No Chad Omier, I know him. Mm-hmm. Matthew Cleveland, I know him. I know him from Florida State, but I know him. I was like, oh, look, we're almost all done here. We've hit most of the big players in this team, and it's no one new. Yay! It's less scouting for me.
Yeah, it was a lot easier when you had guys who had been there a couple of years. But again, I think the transfer portal being again open, again, there's a lot of things that can be used to change that without closing the portal. And we had people transfer before. We had guys who entered the draft early before, and it feels like back then the teams had less of a chance to prepare for us to, like, let's put it this way: if Con Knipple was Con Knipple in 2006, we would have been in trouble because we would not have been able to recruit someone to replace him immediately. We would have had to probably wait a year to do it, as opposed to, okay, we know this guy is good, we know he's leaving, so now we can find either a portal or again go after a freshman who may not have made their decision. And again, as we've talked about, the recruiting calendar has just shifted forward because we see some guys that will commit in October. Some high school juniors and seniors will commit in October, but a lot of them are waiting for the end of the season because they want to see the transfer portal shake out the way we do. And then they can go, okay, now that I know that Duke has 3 guards, I can come in as a power forward and maybe have a chance to play. So it helps everybody with the transparency, and I think there should be more in the terms of contracts.
Yeah, by the way, and don't even get me started on the internationalness of all this. We've seen a huge influx of international. I think Illinois' entire roster are guys from Croatia this year.
Yeah.
In any event, we're not done talking about what you all had to say in the survey. Open answer time after the break. Stick around.
Summer is here. More sun, way more heat, more time to do all the things that make summer so special. And the number one thing you don't want to be doing all summer? Spending hours cooking. That's where Factor can help. Factor's chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and delicious meals are ready in just 2 minutes, taking the hassle out of eating well.
Boy, that's right, Donald. Not only are they quick to heat up, you have a lot of options. You're not stuck with the same leftovers for the entire week. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. And if you're someone who does meal prep for the week, Factor's variety of options means you can have something different every single day, and you don't have to cook. Now you can get outside and enjoy some time with your loved ones.
So get started at factormeals.com/DukeBB50off. Use that code DukeBB50off to get 50% off, plus free shipping on your first box. Again, that's factormeals.com/DukeBB50off for 50% off plus free shipping. Once again, factormeals.com/DukeBB50off.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Visit USAA.com/bundle.
Bundle savings are off total premium, not available in all states or in all situations. To qualify, auto policy must be active prior to property policy issue, subject to change. Restrictions apply. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
9 años pidiendo el Snack Wrap. Aquí tienes tu Snack Wrap. ¿Tú quieres un Snack Wrap? Toma tu Snack Wrap. ¿Tú también? Toma un Snack Wrap. Snack Wrap, Snack Wrap, Snack Wrap. Volvió el Snack Wrap. Para pa pa pa.
Donald and Jason back here on the Duke Basketball Roundup. We are back from the break, and it is time for us to talk about the blank page. We said at the very end of the survey, 1,300 of you took. We said, hey, is there anything else you want to tell us? Anything else you want to talk about? Any of the issues that we posted questions about that you want to comment on? And boy, did you guys fill that section up. Donald, I don't know about you, but when I looked at all the answers, there were more than 1,000 of them. Mm-hmm. They were, and I want to stress something. Just like with your emails, we read every single one of them. That doesn't mean we're going to read every single one of them back to you. It doesn't mean we're going to comment on every single one of them. It doesn't mean we're going to reply to every single one of them. But I do want people to know and understand we read every single thing that you guys send to the dbrpodcast@gmail.com inbox. And we read every single thing that you guys wrote in the survey space. It took some time, people. It took some time. My list, Donald, for some reason it came back in alphabetical order when I was reading them. They were all.
It's because it's because I sorted it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
but as a result of that,
this is why we know that there was I think 119 people who just responded GTHC. So thank you to all 119 of you who responded with the best answer of the day.
I would read a bunch of long answers, and then suddenly I'd hit this moment where it'd be like in the G's, go Duke, and there'd be like 18 go Dukes in a row, and then there'd be like 40 GTHCs. And then I get to the D's, and there'd be a whole bunch of DBR rocks, just DBR rocks, DBR rocks, DBR rocks. When I got to the L's, love the pod, love the pod. If you wrote love the pod, thank you. We love you back. You were one of about 50 people who wrote love the pod. It was kind of funny to look at. I also want to, also when I got to the T's, the thank you for all you do. The number of people who thank us, guys. I mean, as we've been saying for a while, we appreciate all of you. We appreciate all the things that you take the time to share with us. It's just amazing. I wanted to read one of the thank yous that we got. A guy who said, thank you for taking the time out of your lives to add something to ours. He said, I look forward to listening to every single podcast, whether the middle of the season or the middle of the summer. You guys are doing great. I was like,
end the show, Jason. Good. No.
Yeah. When he said taking time out of your lives to add to ours, I was like, damn, man, that's bringing a little tear to my eyes. All right, you go first. What do you want to talk about first from all the, I say go first. I just did 5 minutes. What do you want to talk about now from the open answer section? Should we get to the NIL answers? Boy, there's a lot of them.
There's a lot. And I think there's one aspect that, again, we've talked about in the show at times, but it still gets missed through all of the weeds. And I want to re-emphasize the fact that this was a comment. Someone said that we should not ignore the fact that NIL and pay for play affects non-revenue Olympic sports. And the fact that we talk about all the money that's in college basketball. We talk about the, behemoth of money that sits in college football. But for the swimmers, for the fencers, for the, baseball and softball who made great runs this year for Duke, they get affected by the more money that is being put into football and basketball. And I get it. They're non-revenue sports. Women's basketball also is one where I feel that people can invest more in it. They're part of the NIL part as well. But a lot of that is overlooked at most schools, right? Maybe UConn is going to be throwing money into women's basketball. South Carolina is going to be throwing a lot of money into women's basketball because they have it and because it's a priority. But a lot of people, there's a lot of comments very similarly that said, hey, let's look out for some of these as well, because if we go too much into this, we risk losing some of those sports that we are good at, right? Like, what would Duke be without men's and women's lacrosse, without women's golf, without men's and women's tennis, again, without women's basketball? Like, it'd be a much different school and be less well-rounded than we are. And the fact that Duke is always in the top 10, 15 of the Directors' Cup every year is not because we're good at basketball only. It's because we have excelled in so many disciplines. And I think the biggest comment, right, it has nothing to do with Duke. The 2028 Olympics are going to be in LA. If Stanford and Cal had to cut their Olympic sports, the United States would be middle of the pack when it comes to medals. Most people assume that Stanford and Cal can represent enough medals for U.S. to win the medal count every single time without the help of anybody else. That's how ingrained their non-revenue sports are into the ethos that is the United States Olympic Committee. So NIL cannot affect that, because in turn that affects our love of the Olympics. That's the reason why the United States, watches more Olympics than any other nations, because we know we're going to have so many people that have a chance to win. But if we affect that by, hurting the college programs that feed into these Olympic programs, that could be where this could have a different conversation.
All right, I want to get to a few of the comments we got specifically about NIL. I'm just going to read a few of these because I want to give, these are some of the ones I think, a representative A of what everybody was saying, and B deserve to be recognized. There was someone who said NIL isn't killing college basketball. The portal is. He said getting a new team every year is tiresome. The players have no loyalty, and we, the fans, are losing ours. Pretty telling comment. There was someone else who pointed out NIL needs to evolve into something like the NBA with a collective bargaining agreement and transparent player contracts. Donald, you and I talked about that earlier on the same episode. I can't even count, Donald, how many people brought up the words collective bargaining, players as employees, and things like that in their answers. There were a ton of you who cited that as things that are needed. I am 100% in agreement with you. I think refusing to call these players employees, refusing to collectively bargain with employees is currently taking college basketball down a path, college basketball and football, that is unsustainable and going to kill the sport. We had another person comment and say, I really don't like college basketball anymore. I just love Duke basketball. If I didn't go to Duke, I probably wouldn't watch college basketball anymore. He said, I'm all for athletes getting paid, but if I want to watch a league with no continuity, I can just watch the NBA. Someone else pointed out that in our survey, we didn't ask anything about academics. They said, I don't mind players getting played, but it's making a joke of universities to think that these players are actually progressing toward degrees. And it's diminished, this listener said, it's diminished their interest in college sports. Same listener also said, we need to have the same kind of rules going pro that we have in baseball. And Donald, you know me, this is something I've advocated in the past.
I think we talked about this one on the a while back when we were doing teasers of some of the things. We talked about this particular thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the person said, if you come to college, you need to stay for 3 years. If you want to go straight to the NBA, fine. At a high school, go for it. But if you're going to come to college, you need to stay for 3 years, they said. This person said, I enjoyed Kyrie, Zion, Cooper, but I don't feel as much a part of them as the 4-year guys who are part of the brotherhood. And I agree with that. I don't know if it needs to be 3 years. That's a long time. And frankly, in basketball, guys develop at different kinds of speeds and stuff. And sometimes you have a guy who might show up in college and suddenly is dominating. And they're like, look, Con Knippel went 4th in the draft. A year ago, if you'd said to him, straight to the NBA or to college, and she would have been like, of course I'm going to college. I don't know that you need to say that guy must stay in college for 3 years, but I think 2 years at a minimum would be an interesting situation. And then this is a quick one. I just thought this was hysterical. Someone said, is there some way to kill college football before it destroys everything else? I thought that one was great. And then the last one that's sort of about this, transfer portal, one and done, NIL era. This is a little long, but I think this is interesting. Someone said, I have an analogy about Duke basketball in the one and done transfer portal era that I shared with some friends. It is not flattering, he said. He pointed this out. He said, I'm not a fan of craft beer. One of the reasons is that craft beer drinkers usually drink a different beer each time. When I do that, my first beer, it's fine, it's good. But then for every beer after that, I spend about the first third of the time getting used to the taste of the new beer. He said, that's how I feel about Duke basketball now. I have to spend about the first third of the regular season getting used to the new roster. In the 80s and 90s, I would only have to get to know a couple freshmen per year. Now the roster turnover is so high, there are usually about 7 new contributing players each year that I need to learn about. It's too much. I will say, Donald, this year we get 5 guys back that we feel like we know. But Duke is an unusual team out there in college sports. For most teams, and frankly, most years at Duke, we're looking at almost a completely new roster. And by the way, even though we've got 5 new guys, even though we've got 5 returnees, we got 5 new guys, and it's entirely possible the 5 new guys are almost all starters in terms of, playing a major role for Duke. So, yeah. You got anything else you want?
Yeah, well, I wanted to respond to a couple of those because I think, again, we could talk all day
Go,
about a
man.
lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
The first one that I mentioned, well, first of all, the quick one about college football being destroyed. I think everyone should play college football 26 on whatever gaming platform you wish, because if you play as Duke, the more you play as Duke, the more NIL money they get from EA Sports. So there was a push to get everybody to play as Kent State so that they can get their NIL money up. Sorry, Kent State, but play as Duke because at least the players will get a direct benefit from you playing, umpteen hours of the game. So there's that. I think also there was a point that you made or that someone made that, these players, all they do is just, they only have any loyalty, they leave. Well, as you and I have discussed on this show, for certain ones, and first of all, you mentioned we're in a very unique situation. We've only really had 1 year where a bunch of guys left. We had 2 straight years, or not 2 straight years, but 2 years out of John Shire's tenure where we didn't have any transfers of the main rotation players, and so a lot of people think that if a player leaves, that they wanted to leave, and that's not always the case. I can tell you for a fact that there are definitely some coaches that push players out, and they have been doing that for a long time, even preceding the transfer portal era.
Oh yeah.
Calipari. Would their play? I mean, Calipari 1 year announced at senior night that his entire starting five was entering the draft. The only problem with that is a bunch of their the families were in the stands and they were telling their players like, "You haven't told me you're entering the draft," and they go, "It's because I haven't even discussed that yet with coach." But Calipari is basically like, "I got 5 guys coming in. These guys are going to the league." And that's that. And they were essentially pushed out to make way for the new craft of players. So I want people to, when they think about these transactions, when they think about these contracts, it's not all players specific. It's not focused on just the players. Why don't players have contracts? Players don't come in saying, "Hey, here's my 3-year deal that I want you to agree to." It takes two people. As a lawyer, it takes two people to sign a contract. It takes two sides. And so these schools sometimes are saying, "Hey, you're not going to get as much as this guy because we think you're going to be the eighth man on the bench. And so we're only going to give you X amount of money, and we're not going to sign you to a multi-year deal because we want to move you out because we got this new recruit coming in." This happens all the time. Have guys that get recruited over after them getting there, and that's the reason why some of these players want to move around, is because they want to have the situation, and they're in a full portal of used car salesmen trying to sell them the clunkers, and they want the nice car. So it's an interesting deal there. But Jason, I think the last thing that you had mentioned that I wanted to kind of highlight is the fact that a lot of people look at Duke basketball and they think that the quality is going down because these players don't, quote, have any loyalty. And I just don't, again, I come from a different train of thought, and I come from a world where I know, obviously we've talked on this show about people I know who have undertaken the process, that have been recruited by Duke, been recruited by big schools. I know players in different sports who have bypassed college entirely. And I would love it if guys would stay for multiple years, but we had this before. Every year, Coach K would say, "I want to do as much as I possibly can for this group of guys to win. I'm going to, this opening day, we're going to hopefully get that first win with this group of guys." And he always looked at each season as that season because he knew that everything could change after that. We could have guys going pro. We could have guys who could leave. We have guys who were going to graduate. And guess what? Last year, we had guys who left for the pros. We had guys who graduated. Stanley Borden transferred. And we have that. That happens every single year. Now, does it feel like it happens more often? Yeah, it does. But as you said, it hasn't really happened to us in this transfer portal era. We've been very lucky in that regard. And I think it's because Duke sells them the real car as opposed to the clunker, at least enough for these guys to want to play here and compete for a chance to play for Duke. And so I stress to people that we should really focus on the system. And I think in this country, I'm not trying to get into the political weeds, but this system that America has set up is geared where we kind of, go after the people who were just trying to live, right? These players are trying to make a living. and they have the opportunity to do so. And we are trained to go after them because they are selfish. They are not loyal. They are the ones that are leaving. And again, it's a whole system. If we institute transparency, if we institute contracts with buyouts and maybe even players can not necessarily get trades, but like just like in soccer, if a team wants to come in and say, "Hey, I want Jason Evans to be on my podcast," then I can go, "Well, Jason's got this contract here, and if you want to buy it out, great. If not, we're done talking." And they can do it that way. I think that will allow for, again, everybody to be kind of on the same page. And I think for those people who are on the fence or trying to hop off the fence into the, going back to amateurism, like that was not the way. But I think this will maybe help alleviate a lot of concerns that people may have about this entire system if the NCAA is willing to actually go to work and be about the business of making college basketball and college football and all college sports better. Right now, they're not. So that's where my ire is. It's not at the system. It's not at the transfer portal. It's not at NIL. It's not at these players. It's not at the coaches. It is at the NCAA, who has always been above the fray because they don't want to do the work. And Jason, you and I love to do the work. We are grinding all the time. If they would give us if they gave us 3 pizzas, probably a bottle of liquor, and in 6 hours, we could fix the system for them. But they won't do that either. They're just intent on letting everybody fight over the wrong things. So I ask people to keep that in mind, that until the NCAA decides that they want to actually be the NCAA and govern, that these questions will still persist. And it's going to take courts, and it's going to take laws, and it's going to take, again, collective bargaining to get the things that we want that would make this where it's palatable for everyone, but also continue to make the game as special as we want it to be.
Well, and by the way, probably sometime in the next week or two, we're going to get word on expansion of the NCAA basketball tournament. I think it's probably going to end up expanding. They keep on talking that they're going to
They kept tabling it for like a week. So
yeah, it's you and I were about to do a podcast. We're like, oh, let's wait. Maybe and then they whatever that. So yeah, part of the NCAA being bad owners, so to speak, is they're about to do something that no one wants. What's more, we're already seeing unbelievable chaos in the world of NIL. We're not going to get into a lot of details of it on this podcast, Donald, but the House settlement set up a specific clearinghouse being run by Deloitte that was designed to make sure all the NIL contracts and the such were completely above board, and it's already running into huge problems. They're not approving hardly anything, and schools
backlogs.
Schools are extremely frustrated. I can tell you for a fact that players are not getting paid what they expected and thought they were going to get paid. They're not blaming the school. They understand that it's this new thing. Coaches are out there making promises that they know they probably are not going to be able to keep and not have to keep. It's bonkers. One of the reasons you have not seen the current class, the class of 2026, making commitments for the most part, the high school players, part of it is they're currently playing in the Peach Jam and the other big tournaments. But the other part of it is such an uncertain world in terms of what schools are going to be able to pay players that the system's just completely befouled at this point. So it's a mess. It's a big mess. And, we talked on this podcast a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about John Shire and his midseason press conference, and John mentioning that he and the staff try to get together and look in their crystal ball, try to look to the future. What's coming next? Man, I have no idea what's coming next. I can't even figure out what's coming right now because it's so crazy.
What's the common answer? Like, thoughts hazy, please ask again later. That's basically the crystal ball answer permanently.
Yeah, exactly. The magic 8-ball. So all this is it's an unmitigated mess. I don't know that the NCAA is really able to regulate it at this point because they handed it over to the courts. They were trying to get the Congress involved. Yeah, right. Congress is going to. You think Congress is going to solve your problems? Man, I don't know. But anyway, we got to deal with it what it is as it comes along. I did want to before we finish, Donald, because you and I could keep on doing this for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've already been on for an hour. I did want to read a couple more non-NIL related, non-transfer portal related of the comments we got from folks. Just some good stuff. You may recall that just last week I was mentioning to folks that I grew up in a UNC family. but that I'm now, obviously a diehard Dookie, but, the rest of my family are all Carolina fans. We had someone write in the open space in the comment and say, my dad's a UNC fan. My mom is a Wake Forest fan, but I'm a Dookie. I was like, dude, I love you. That's awesome. I know where you're coming from on that. We had a bunch of people say, after years of speculating about who would replace Coach K, we picked John Shire, and we've made the right choice. There were a lot of people who were like, man, I just love everything about what John Shire has done so far. And there were several people who, by the way, pointed out, they were like, don't try and measure John Shire against Coach K. What he's accomplished so far, by the way, is way beyond what Coach K did in his first few years. And these people said, let Shire run his own race. Don't compare him too much to Coach K, which I thought was very prescient. I love this. There was someone who wrote in the comment space, they wrote exactly 5 characters, 82-50. 82 to 50. That was their only comment. Harkening back to a great moment in Duke Carolina history. And then we had several folks who say, Jason, Donald, love you to death. We want a third host. We had folks who said, can't you get Sam back? I'm like, guys, if we could get, if we get Sam back, we would. But then we had a bunch of people who said, not a bunch, several. I don't want his head to get too big. But there are people who said, hey, that's Scott Rich guy. Maybe you should make him permanent. I will tell you right now, folks, the reason that we have not sought to replace Sam, and Scott is great. I love having Scott on. These episodes are already long enough with 2 people talking. You and I
We'd
have
be on here for
mastered
4
the art.
days.
Yeah, you and I have mastered the art of chatting forever about nothing. If we had a third person to talk to, I'm just worried it'd get really, really long. But a number of you have voice support for Scott. We love him to death. And when there's big moments, we bring him on here to be a part of this for sure.
Yeah, and I also think what a lot of the comments that I saw was included the fact that they like that we get all these different perspectives, and hopefully over the course of the next few weeks we'll get a few more that aren't you and I. And while we each love each other's opinion and we're able to play off each other, it's great to get those questions in from somebody else.
Yeah.
Whether it's a guest or again a guest host. And we like doing that because it allows us to, Jason's a journalist. I'm trying to be in the soccer world. And so we get to ask these questions and get a different perspective that we can take away learning something as well. So it's been very fun to be a part of this. The survey answers were terrific. The funny thing is I wish we could figure out a way to package it a little bit better so that that you and I won't have to spend however long was it, basically better part of a month and a half reading all these answers and trying to figure out which ones were the ones that we can package into an hour-long conversation about NIL. The fact that we did this in about an hour already is a win. So I really appreciate everybody who posted this. I think Jason, we should try to do this every year. I know some people asked for us to do this every year and maybe kind of standardize some of the questions and offer new ones based on the previous season. So we can obviously look into that. Jason, also, I was reminded by our friend Mike Hemrick that I owe you a trophy that I need to send it to you. So I will get the Stats Game trophy. Well, I need to figure out a way to get the plaque fixed. But once that's fixed, Jason and I will get in the mail to you so you can have it with you when you record.
Damn straight, baby. Yes, you will. Yes, you. All right,
also
got to
figure out how much popcorn I got to put into a box to make it where that thing has a slip ride. The thing is, it's not small.
It's not insignificant. I know.
Yeah.
I know. All right, with that, we're going to wrap it up here on the latest edition of the DBR podcast, the Duke Basketball Roundup. He is Donald. I am Jason. You all are the listeners who filled out our survey. We are so thankful for you doing that. Had a really good time looking at all these different results. Here's the Duke Band now, playing us out and taking us home.